Hello everybody and welcome finally to another video on this channel. I'm sorry it's been so long, there's been so much going on. There's so many videos I want to do and we'll get to them eventually. But today I want to show you something that's basically in some of the newer versions it's quite important that you know about. Someone has actually made a really cool add-on. The reason I've actually got it in sort of windowed mode here at the top is I want to show you how realistic this mod is, okay? It's 4 gigs, it's a huge mod and you know, I think it's worth checking out. So the first thing I need to do to actually start with this mod is basically it's to do with the turbine really. So I actually do need to go and turn the reactor on first of all. So I haven't actually got any clever redstone mods, so hopefully that will do it. And if we come over to the turbine here, you'll see that actually as it's oh my goodness. Okay, that was not good. What the hell happened here? Oh, what is this down here? Bit of netherrack. Oh no, not netherrack, nether brick. Oh, this does not look good. Hello? Oh yeah, I forgot about this. I wasn't meant to show this today, but I suppose we'll just go with it. How do I even get this on? I can't put it on manually. I got an extra copy of a hazmat suit headwear for free. It's not bad, is it? Well, here goes nothing. Now, one thing to know about this mod is that it's a bit difficult to play in first person, as we'll see later on. But for now, we'll be playing in this sort of bizarre third person mode. It's, well, you'll get used to it eventually. The first thing you want to do is get a potato and cut it in half. And, you know, I actually had a potato on me. You can look in JI for the recipe. But actually it's pretty easy to make. I'm pretty sure you just grow one. Now as you can see, I've actually also got a knife here, and the recipe for that's pretty easy again. Just look in JI. I won't show any of the recipes, you can just look them up. Now the sort of equipment you'll need to make this mod work correctly is well, first of all an oven, especially with a hob, because that's where the magic really happens. And you'll also want a place to cut the potatoes up. And you can also see in the foreground you can see some sunflower oil, which is very useful to have. And it's also useful to have a fridge as well. Now, to keep my hunger up, because I can't use the potato for just eating, I can't just cook them, put them in a furnace and eat it, I'm going to be having these donuts, which again are pretty easy to make, and a cup of tea. And I'm just getting that prepared now, and there it is. So that will keep me sustained through the whole process. Now, as you can see, I'm moving pretty quickly here with this knife. It's a little bit blunt, so it's a little bit tricky sometimes to get a clean slice, but for the most part it's fine. So what you want to get, as well as your potatoes, is you want to get some onions. We'll see them appearing later on. And I'm going to be using chicken, but actually you can use whatever the hell you want, you know, probably. I haven't actually ever used anything other than chicken, but you know, if you don't want to use any sort of meat, there's probably options out there to change that up. Now I've got half a potato here that I don't really know what to do with. I'll use it later for something. I'm sure it'll be really useful. So I'm just going to use the other half here because I think 2 would probably be too many. So 1.5 will do the job. The other thing I have, which you can't quite see, it's in a little cup in the bottom left, is a cup of spices. I've got some cumin, some ground coriander, and all that sort of stuff. And I'll put that in later to give it the spice that we need. Now you'll see actually that I add a little bit too much. I'm actually only meant to put half of the amount that I've put in the cup, but I end up putting all of it in, and that's mainly to do with the sort of first person difficulties that I'll have later on. But we'll get to that. Now I'm just washing my hands here because, you know, there's no harm in not doing so, or no harm in doing so, especially when you're dealing with chicken later on. But for now we're just dealing with potatoes, and we're going to start getting some hot water going. So I've boiled this water in a kettle, again easy to craft. Apart from the heating element, that requires mining some pretty rare materials, but hopefully you'll have some by the time you've got this mod installed. And put all the potatoes in a bowl, because that way, you know, you reduce the chance of burning yourself as you sort of put the potato into the hot water. So just be very careful not to burn yourself, and it's all in there brilliantly. That is expert. Now, inside this cupboard, unfortunately again the third person mode is a bit difficult, but following Marco Pierre White's advice, I'm going to get a Knorr stock pot. They are obviously the best, and I'm going to put it in there once I open it. I'm just having a bit of difficulty there, but that's fine, there we go. And this just needs to be stirred around a little bit, just sort of break it up, and now you've got a sort of stock with potatoes in it. And I've got sweet potatoes because potatoes, there were no normal ones left, or there were, but you had to buy like 20 of them, and I didn't really want 20 potatoes, but you could buy 2 sweet potatoes from Sainsbury's, and that's what I went for. Now the sunflower oil goes in. You don't want too much because you don't want it too oily. It's a bit unhealthy having too much oil in, and it's a non-stick pan, or a non-stick whatever it's called. What's the word for that thing? It's a non-stick version of it, and that way you don't need as much oil. Now here comes the onions. Now I've got a good tactic for this. Again, haven't automated this process yet, so still in the sort of manual stages of this technology. But what I recommend doing is you just sort of cut them in half, and then you sort of peel off the bits you don't want and just chuck them away, and then you can carry on going. And as I learnt from a Gordon Ramsay video one time, you want to keep the sort of end bit on the onion until near the end, and that way then no trouble. Again, I haven't gone for the normal onion. I've gone for the whatever it's called, the sort of the purple onion. Because they didn't have any normal onions, but actually these purple onions are probably better because they're a bit sweeter, and it means it just tastes nicer generally. Now you can hear there the water going because I've got a sort of I've got a bath of sort of hot water, which I can then sort of filter and throw away at the end of the whole thing. So I can sort of keep washing my hands in the tap, and then all of the nonsense goes into a thing like throw away later. So all these like little onion bits, they're gone. Right, so at this stage I'm just kind of going through the motions of getting these onions done, and at some point I will start throwing them away. That's a very safe thing to do there, so just keep that in mind. Yes, starting to cut the onions now. I do actually, it's very easy to nearly cut yourself, and you'll see that I do very nearly cut myself. But so don't do that. Try and cut an onion in a sensible manner, and also don't probably do that. Don't wave a knife around like that. So yeah, cutting all the sort of the end, not the end bit that I was talking about before. The other end bit I was cutting off there, and now we're starting to cut away at the onions down the middle, so that I can just chop them laterally then, and just throw them all into that. Again, don't know what the word is. Is it a pan? It's not really a pan, is it? I can't remember the word for it. Anyway, I've turned the gas on now, as you can see. I've got that blue flame, which indicates, I can't remember what metal that indicates, but there's some metal in there. I'm just going to move that away for absolutely no reason at all, and going to keep cutting. Oh, I think the reason I moved that away is because it was starting to boil a little bit. You don't really want the water to like super boil, you just want it to sort of, just if it starts to boil, just take it off a little bit. And I'm putting all the onions in there, just being a little bit careful not to burn myself again, because you don't want to splash oil on your hand. And there you go. Look at that lateral motion there, cutting away the rubbish bit at the end. As I said, you want to just get rid of that as late on in the process as possible, because that way you're less likely to cry. And here we go again. That's again a very safe way of cutting an onion, like doing a cross-hand manoeuvre there. Don't really recommend that. And again, right down the middle there. Really professional. Now Marco Pierre White can cut a whole onion into strips that are about 1 millimetre across in the space of about 5 seconds. I find that's a little bit too... Oh, something in the actual... Something behind me there has actually just fallen over, but we just won't worry about that. We'll just carry on with the commentary. Yeah, so there we go. Just slowly throwing it in, slowly sort of building up the onion, and again throwing away that bit. And it's just the same thing 8 times. There's only so much you can really commentate about on this, so I'm just kind of rambling. Okay, so that's all in. I'm just getting those last bits and throwing them away, because the next bit is the chicken. But first of all, I'm going to just get those onions frying nicely at the bottom there, and you can actually see the steam coming out of the potato and stock pan slash thing I can't remember the name of. And I'm just going to take that off and mix it about a bit, because you don't want it to sort of burn, or well, you can't really burn, but you just want to mix it around, because that's what cooks do. You just mix stuff around when you don't have anything else to do, and it just keeps it going nicely. There we go. There's my super mega mother mug that I've got there. I'm drinking out of, and I'm also having a little bit of donut to keep me going here, because this is tough work. Now, time for the chicken. So you want to get your hands nice and clean for this one, because that's what you do with chicken. And you can see there I'm just really focusing on that and looking across to just make sure everything's looking good. And we go across now, and out the fridge we get ourselves some lovely chicken. I was just, just hesitating there, but I've done that pretty cleanly. Now, I'm going to be looking at the chicken occasionally, because sometimes I've found in the past that this particular chicken I've got from Sainsbury's, not a sponsor, sometimes has a couple bones in it. So I'm just going to be looking for those and getting rid of them if and when I find them. Getting the towel going so that I dry my hands, and let's get going. So I'm just kind of cutting them into sort of randomly sized chunks about that big. Just look at that really, really sharp knife there that I'm using, cutting through it like butter. And I'm just going to slowly go through them and put them into a bowl, a second bowl, and then once I've got them in the bowl I will then start transferring it over to the pan slash thing that we can't remember. And the thing to do when you're putting it in the pan, as you're about to see, is to make sure that you don't chuck it all in straight away, because you don't want anything to sweat. You just want to put it in, sort of one bit at a time. Well, not one chunk at a time, maybe like 3 or 4 chunks at a time. So you go, like, I'm getting rid of a bit of stuff there that I didn't want. See, that's when I'm throwing stuff in the bin, is when I see stuff that I don't really want in there. But otherwise, it's pretty simple. And there we go again. That sharp knife is doing the job really well for me there. But otherwise, I'm starting to get into the sort of muscle memory of it now. It's starting to become easier, and I'm also cutting them into slightly bigger chunks because I'm also getting a bit tired of doing it myself. There you go. And again, another little bit that I don't want goes in there. And that's the bin you can hear. That little ting sound is the bin opening and closing to add that little bit of extra sort of noise to the environment of this special occasion. So I'm actually not going to throw that away in the bin, because you can actually recycle that plastic, but I need to clean it out, so I'll do that later. But for now, rewash hands and start to get the old chicken going into the pan slash thing. And at this stage the potatoes should be pretty good. You want to have the potatoes on early on, because that way they become kind of softer and absorb a lot of the water, and that way when you pour it into the rest of the stuff it won't be a sort of weird, horrible, solid texture. Especially with the sweet potatoes, because they're harder than a normal potato is. So you definitely want to cut up the sweet potatoes a bit smaller than you would a normal potato. So here we go, the chicken goes in a bit at a time, sort of. I'm putting like 3 or 4 pieces in at a time, mixing it in, maybe for like 10 to 15 seconds. And you can sort of start to see when they're beginning to brown, that's the time to add the next pieces in. I'm trying to kind of just randomly mix it around. I can see now from this angle that I haven't really got the flame exactly over the middle, because I'm kind of pulling it towards myself. But that doesn't matter. That's the thing with these sort of curries. It doesn't really matter if you screw up. That's kind of why I make them. You can kind of screw up quite a lot and it still tastes all right. So I'm looking there. I'm looking really focused on this job. And it's a good thing I've got my lab coat on. It's like a hazmat, but it's a little bit less protective. It sort of does the job. Something happened when I fell through the portal. I think basically what happened is that because the mod was so big, the game didn't have enough memory to hold all of the fabric of the hazmat and all of the materials in the hazmat. So it just left me. It tried to do its best to leave me with something, and it left me with a chef's hat and a lab costume. So if you do experience problems like that, don't worry. I survived. It's all good. And actually probably freed up my limbs a little bit more. It's probably quite difficult to do anything like this in a hazmat, but I recommend giving it a go because, probably pretty fun. Probably quite the experience. Now at this point I've kind of lost track of where I am in the procedure, but I think I've pretty much put all the chicken in. And now it's time to add... Well, no, it's not. It's now. I was about to say it's time to add the potato, but I'm actually going to show you the situation here. The potatoes are going nicely, and so is the chicken. And you're going to start seeing here the issues with the first-person mode, because you have to hold you have to hold the first person mode with one hand and hold everything else in the other. So I'm pouring in there the spices. Now that's probably about as much as you want to add with the amount that I've been using, because I accidentally followed the ingredient list a bit wrong. Now you can see some issues already with the first person. Things are starting to go a little bit haywire. But I then also add a bit, there we go, I made the mistake there. I actually realise about now that I've made the mistake, but it's too late. I just go with it. And as you can see, I nearly dropped the entire thing on the floor there, and it's kind of moving around a bit. It's not really the best way of doing things. As I said, first person mode is tricky, but it just about works. Now, I'm going to put this back, and another issue with first person is that once you're in first person, as you're experiencing here, it's a little bit tricky to get back into third person mode. It's a bit like hitting F5 and it just doesn't want to do it properly. And as you can see, it's just not happening. Nearly. That'll do. You know what, that'll do. Okay, so it's time to pour the stock and potatoes in. There they go. And just leaning back there to avoid any injuries of water spraying on my hands and the rest of me. And now I'm just sort of mixing it in now. And at first, there'll be quite a lot of water in the pan / thing, but you will actually, over time, as we leave this thing to sort of just cook, I'm putting a bit of honey in there as well. You just want to add a little bit of honey once you sort of mix everything in. You will see that actually over time the water will start to evaporate and you'll be left with something that's got a decent sort of curryish texture. So for now I'm just kind of getting the onions and chicken out from the bottom to be sort of mixed in properly with the potatoes, and I'm also just sort of changing the heat there so that it's good for continual cooking. So that's kind of what it looks like right now. And over time you will actually see that it starts to go away. But you do have to leave this now for quite a long time. So I recommend putting the lid on and going away for maybe 15-20 minutes, putting it on a low heat. Go away for 15-20 minutes, come back, yeah, grab your tea of course. I've put a little bit too much tea bag in there. Oh, I just caught my lab coat on the fan as well. Don't do that either. And this is about 20 minutes later. You can see it's sort of bubbling away. The water hasn't really gone away that much yet, but every 20 minutes or so, you definitely want to sort of stir it, because otherwise the bottom will start to burn and the top won't have cooked as much. So just mix it around a bit. Probably again, this first person mode is tricky, and so I'm not mixing it quite as well as you probably should do. But again, the brilliance of this sort of thing is that it kind of doesn't matter if you screw it up, but try your best not to screw it up as much as possible. So probably mix it with a little bit more vigour than I'm doing here, because I'm not really getting the bottom out from underneath to the top. But there you go, that'll do. And we put the lid back on and head back for another 20 minutes or so. Except that I actually forgot about it at this point because I was doing other things, and I've actually left it now for probably about 40 minutes. I've made a bit of a mistake, and you can actually see at the bottom there things have kind of stuck to the bottom and burned. Don't make that mistake, but again, it doesn't really matter that much. It's just not quite as nice. So try your best not to burn it and leave it for too long like I did. But there you go. That's what you get left with, and we're going to try it out now. By going back into third-person mode, actually. Well, first of all, we need to grab a fork, which again, easy crafting recipe really. Back into third-person mode. Hopefully the F5 key doesn't give me as much trouble. It might also be something with this really high-res texture pack that's the issue. I'm not quite sure. But anyway, we have a taste, and just give it a little blow. Keep it nice and cool, and it's decent. It's not bad. I'll do the job. Well, thank you very much for watching, everybody. There's one more thing in this video that I want to let you in on, which will come after this. But otherwise, have a good day. And as I said, we'll get some more stuff going on the channel at some point in the future. Thank you for watching. Reactor control to Mr. Tom. Reactor control to Mr. Tom. Take your oxide fuel and put your hazmat on. Reactor control to Mr. Tom. Connecting levers, redstone on. Check for fission, and may Steve's love be with you. This is reactor control to Mr. Tom. Just look at what you've made. Such a shame the automation's not prepared. Now it's time to extract plutonium, don't be scared. This is Mr. Tom to reactor control. I'm breaking down the wall, and I'm boiling in a most peculiar way. And my fate looks very different today. For here am I sitting in a steel can, far below the world. Planet Earth is blue, and there's something I must do. Though I passed my first week on the job, I'm feeling very ill, and I don't think it was safe to take the blow. Oh, that curry, I loved it very much, you know. Reactor control to Mr. Tom, the reactor's dead. Is something wrong? Can you hear me, Mr. Tom? Can you hear me, Mr. Tom? Can you hear me, Mr. Tom? Here am I standing in a kitchen, looking at the moon. Planet Earth is blue, and it's April Fool's to you.